a dude who is a scorer of buckets in a consummate way, Ja Morant, has found himself in a pretty precarious situation. Maybe that feels a little bit much, but
yeah,
it is a weird situation.
It's outrageously weird because he has no priors.
So let's start with the fact that Ja Morant he's away from the Grizzlies, and this is not a suspension, right? It's important to discuss this in this way. He's away from the Grizzlies for at least 2 games after early on Saturday this weekend. He went on Instagram Live and appeared to be brandishing a gun in a nightclub just hours after the Grizzlies lost to the Denver Nuggets in Denver. So that is the immediate portion of this. What's interesting to note, what is important to note, is that we have, at least what has been disclosed rather to us, the public, is kind of a pattern of things that Ja Morant has gotten into. You were mentioning earlier in the break, Shannon Sharpe has been discussing some of this, and that's because we saw publicly Shannon Sharpe was jawing with the Memphis Grizzlies from courtside.
And Ja Morant and his dad, T. Morant, who looked just like Usher.
Yeah, and all of this kind of falls within, and if you are unfamiliar, like this is kind of a backstory for if you're unfamiliar with it, just Ja Morant getting into these situations that
he's trying to be hard.
Yeah, feel a little unbecoming, and that feels a little paternalistic of an NBA player. And so the whole conversation, let me start here, has felt a little paternalistic, right? It feels like everybody's like talking down to the dude, but at the same time, like some of it feels warranted, if that makes sense.
It does feel warranted because it makes no sense. And let me explain why it makes no sense.
Yeah.
He has no history of a troubled past. It's different if he's, I'm not saying, is he from the hood or not? That has nothing to do with it. It's called a troubled past. There have been guys from the farm who have a troubled past. It's like, man, all they need is some help. They need somebody to reach out to them. They need somebody to guide them. He didn't come into the NBA like that. He came into the NBA where everybody loves him. His teammates love him. He had no history of, he's brooding. None of those things. There was nothing about, did something happen?
Stars have equalized.
Yes, go ahead and describe what happened. We got to keep people updated.
Oh, I just caught the goal.
Okay, we'll describe this momentarily.
Yeah, we'll give you an update.
There's no reason to change your dial.
No, absolutely.
But back to Ja Morant.
Yes.
Again, his situation, 2-parent family. And again, there have been people who have issues, mental wellness, whatever. There is no prior history with him. He has no traffic tickets. He has no criminal record. He's not a guy, on draft day, you had to worry about him. Nothing. There was nothing in his background that said Ja Morant could be an issue. Yeah. Nothing.
And I think this is where the kind of the idea, the paternalism or whatever, if that's even the word as I say it, I think a lot of people have come to this with like a measure of concern, as opposed to like finger wagging, which I don't think is what
it's not finger wagging.
Useful
it's
here.
Just concern. Because like, wait a minute.
But I think some of this is he's trying to kick. I think also like who he's kicking it with, and I don't mean like his crew is leading him down a bad path. Hey man, Memphis is a hard scrabble place.
I grew up there,
and you know that.
I know this.
Uniquely, right?
I know Memphis backwards.
So as a rich 23-year-old, but who is also like Ja Morant, who is it that you want to kick it with? Right? Like, I don't know that there's like and again, this isn't to say that like you have to live within a certain class and those are the people that you have to spend time with. But like the people his age that probably like the music that he likes and all those things that are also like have his kind of money, I think it's fair to assume like the ways that they kick it are probably a lot like what Ja is doing.
But here's the difference though.
Yes.
Here's the difference though.
Yes.
They don't have an NBA contract with endorsement opportunities and represent not only a franchise, a city. In other words, they don't have those same responsibilities.
Sure.
With that being said, Snoop Dogg put it best.
Okay.
And Snoop Dogg is straight out of Compton. He's Long Beach, LBC.
Yeah.
There are some people, if they can't hang with you no more, they got to raise their level too. If your level is being raised, if you are raising to a certain level, they've got to raise their level too, or you have to leave them behind. Because guess what? You are the one that is carrying them anyway. You're not going down to them. They're trying to keep up with you.
Yes.
And if they can't, you cannot let your crew, and by the way, these aren't all, I know a few people around Memphis, and I know the people around him.
Yeah.
These ain't people. They're not. These are not the people he grew up with.
Yeah, but one thing that's
where are you going with this, Reg?
No, but one thing that's interesting to think about is that like there's been a lot of talk about, oh man, you got to watch who you hanging out with. A lot of the stories that we have heard, right? Whether it's his mom calling him from the Foot Locker saying that somebody was, getting into it with her, and him rolling up with his homies. That is not something that the homies initiate that. That is a decision that he is making to go do, right? The idea
but
that
guess what? Who's egging him on? Who's telling him not to do that? Who is in his crew telling him, dog, you can't be doing this?
Sure, right? Like I understand that, and I want to get to that point, but I do want to initiate the idea that, like, look, man, there's some of this where we cannot say this like he is entirely just like an impressionable child that is being.
No.
Some of this is like, yo, this is where he is coming from. And
but at the same time, he's got to know that there are responsibilities.
Sure.
You can look at Spider-Man. What ultimate power comes ultimate responsibilities. It's real simple. Either you want to be in the NBA with some responsibilities or you don't. Yeah. And it's just that simple. And again,
I don't think
you
it's
can't
that
blame.
I don't think it's that. I understand what you're saying, and when it comes to the money, that's cool. But like, I do think that
no, it's not about the money. It's his career. Do you like playing basketball, dog?
That still comes down to his money, right? Like,
well,
his career,
he played in
right?
the street then.
And
he played in the street. And guess what? He can play in the street with the same guys he's rolling with. He's got decisions to make.
I understand.
And again,
that.
he's 23, but guess what? He's 23, but he never acted like this before. So that's why there's a difference.
I don't know that that's the case.
Yes, it is. Because guess what? You would have saw about. Let me tell you something about the NBA.
Uh-huh.
They got FBI agents. They got CIA.
Sure.
They got former security. They do background checks because you don't get nobody $200 million without knowing everything about them.
Okay.
So don't tell me because you don't know that they don't know. That man had no priors. That's why everybody's concerned.
Well, we talking about no priors, right?
You know of.
No, I understand.
I'm trying to tell you, there's so many people on so many levels that have concerns for him because this is not his behavior over his life. And that's why it's like this makes no sense. If he had those priors, if he had any, I'm not even talking about gangster acting like. I'm talking about just mental wellness or even troubled. The man had none of those things. And because you don't know about it does not mean that the NBA and their FBI and their CIA and their security people did not do the background checks, because they did. You don't give nobody that kind of money without saying, can they handle it? Even Nike. I'm just giving you some life lessons myself.
I'm listening, KG. Or sorry, CA.
Oh, there you go.
KG's on a boat somewhere, and I'm talking to KG.
Go
That's
ahead.
crazy. No, but like the idea. Okay, so we started talking about mental health because it is worth noting, right? In conjunction with Nike, there was a statement that Ja Morant put out that said that the company will support him. And basically, the language that they used was one of mental health, or basically something similar to mental health. Because I don't want to
stress.
Yes, right. He talked about the stress, and basically he apologized for his actions to the community, to his team, to his family, and said he wants to get better and find a better way to deal with the stress that he is under, right? That seems like the language of like mental health and like self-improvement and those things. These are things that can go undiagnosed. You know what I'm saying? So like those are things that he might have been dealing with. And I'm not saying that he did not have a responsibility to find better action. I'm just trying to understand how like you can get to this place. And I do think that it's possible to get to this place, right? But it seems like he wants to be in it. It's not like he was being dragged to those places.
Correct.
And it seemed like he needed that wake up call in order to like get that vision, get that understanding, because the way that he was kicking it, this is how dudes get shot in Memphis.
Yes.
Easily.
Yes. And not just by other dudes, by the police.
All sorts of folks.
I'm just trying to say I grew up there and I know these things. One other thing about this situation, and again, I apologize for not letting you speak, because people are texting and said, let Reggie speak. It's his own show. What was getting me heated. Yeah, me and Reg cool. This is kind of turning like a barbershop conversation. What's driving me crazy on this whole thing is Ja Morant. This is like a wake-up call to saving him, because he is not under arrest. He has not shot anybody. Nobody shot him. Nobody's injured. Nobody got murdered. There's nothing other than, guess what? You are highly embarrassed. It could have been a lot worse. He's the one that put it on Instagram.
Yes.
Live. Somebody didn't catch him on it. He did it, which is insane. At the same time, people in Texas used to carrying a gun, and because it's open carry. It's open carry in Tennessee too, but you can't do it in a nightclub with alcohol served, and that's where he went wrong. If he was doing it at his house, maybe he could get away with that. At the same time, he's still representing a city,
yes,
an organization, and he just signed. He got a big Nike contract. He just did a deal with Powerade.
Yeah,
he's basically trying to throw those things away because he's trying to be something that he's not, or he has no history of ever doing before. And the people around him have been saying this is because of the people around him. And again, we don't know why he's acting this way, but the good part is it's not too late. Yeah. And that's why everybody, again, this is only an issue because Ja Morant is a superstar. If he was the end of the bench guy, if he was a guy that wasn't even that good, or a guy that had a prior history of either mental issues, some kind of issues where you say, oh my God, something wrong with it, or he can't handle the NBA, he can't handle success. He doesn't, or he acts out on the court and he's a bully on the court. He doesn't do any of those things. So again, that's why it's shocking. That's why it's a talking point. But more importantly, it's not too late. That's the wonderful thing about where he is right now. But as I was trying to explain about how the NBA has this ultimate security.
Sure.
There are things they give these guys tests. They all have these rookie orientations and things. But they also do. I can't even tell you the level of security because I know so many security guys that know things about players so that the player doesn't get in trouble. You don't invest hundreds of millions of dollars into guys who can't handle certain situations. And Ja Morant checked all the boxes correctly. That's why his behavior right now is so unusual.
I understand, especially as a guy from Memphis, that I know you got connections everywhere, but particularly in your hometown. Mm-hmm. Like I'm sure that
I've talked to people who hang out with him.
Right. So I want people to understand that like CA is speaking from a place of like understanding.
That again, he's not known to be somebody that people don't like.
Right.
That's the other part about it. It's not like, oh, stay away from him, give him some space. But he might snap.
We've seen the aggression, right? And that's like one thing to understand is, hey man, you start brandishing the tool, man. That's basically that is a sign of aggression, man. Like a lot of places, you don't pull the thing out unless you plan to like do something with it. Basically, you are showing intent to do something, and he did that on Instagram Live.
He also did it on the bench after somebody made a wild shot. He made his fingers do the capping.
Right, he did that, which, I mean, a little bit, I don't know how, if we're going to rank irresponsibility, but there you go.
It shows the pattern of which led to this. You follow me?
Yeah.
It's like there's little things that kept leading to this, and one of the things that Shannon Sharp was talking about after he had his situation with Ja's people was and so basically, Shannon called it. That's another thing. It's like he said on his debate show with Skip Bayless back in early February, he's gonna throw it all away if he's not careful because he's got these. And then you heard about the reports of his crew shining a red dot on the Indiana Pacers bus.
The one that I found
these are things that like this is a pattern.
Yeah, the thing I found really illustrative was he was accused of punching a 17-year-old boy during a pickup game at his house, right? And the idea was that supposedly Ja, kind of passed the ball aggressively. The boy passed it back, hit Ja in the face, and then it became a fight, right? And so, like, it's that level of aggression, that ramp up, that I think is kind of, or at least I would imagine, is kind of motivating all of this stuff. And so, you're right? You jeopardize the money, especially as a forward-facing guy. Being so public, the money is a thing that you put in jeopardy. But the bigger thing about all of this is that you put yourself in a place where these people that you can be aggressive to, you don't know who is going to want to come back at you. And we've seen people get touched. I mean, if you were out in these streets, you can get touched. And that's the thing that is it's not even that's the thing that was problematic about his behavior, is that he was operating in such a way that can make it so not just his talent, because I know people get really mad about people misusing their talent. It's almost like a level of jealousy that comes through. But just like your life you were putting it in a place that was really dangerous. So when I started the segment talking about the paternalism that it sounded like it was coming, there's a lot of people that are like, oh man, don't waste your talent. Oh man, you don't have to do this, right? You're above that. And it sounded like, like old folks chiding a teenager. But in some ways, that's kind of what they were getting to. And did you have something you wanted to say there? Because I also wanted to go to Jalen Rose.
Yeah, we want to hear this Jalen Rose, and we can do that. I want to say this, though. Sometimes it's not about old people chiding somebody. Yep. It's called wisdom. The difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is some facts. Wisdom is how to use those facts.
Yeah.
And Richard Pryor said this back in the day. You don't get old being no fool.
Right.
So some people have lived through some things, and they try to warn you that stove is hot, don't touch it. And it's not chiding a child. It's actually warning you to help your life be better. And it's not even about the money he's throwing away, that he could be throwing away. It's about your lifestyle or what you've built. Why would you throw it all away over some people that are giving you bad advice?
And so within that, Jalen Rose over the weekend, working obviously ESPN, ABC when the games are being broadcast, gave a pretty impassioned kind of
he's
speech.
lived this.
And exactly, he lived it. The wisdom you were talking about, Jalen Rose was trying to give him some of that here.
I am Ja Morant. Like, you guys have got a chance to see me grow up for public consumption since 1991. And I've been involved in drug raids. I've survived assassination attempts. I've been that undisciplined young person that was trying to figure out how to be famous, how to be successful, and how to change the dynamics of my family. The one thing that young people have to understand, and in Ja Morant's case, when you first get drafted, you go from being a member of the family, a member of the crew, to being the leader, to being the breadwinner. And first and foremost, I hear a lot of people talking about like his family and his crew. When you the leader, it's on you, because you end up searching that lifestyle. You end up wanting to be down. And what I had to learn is that people come into your life for 4 reasons: to add, subtract, multiply, or divide. You have to choose wisely. He has way too much to lose. Trust me, I've been that young player carrying a gun. And Wilbon alluded to this. When you start waving it, that could get you killed.
So that was Jalen Rose speaking from like a very impassioned place.
That's where I was about 5 minutes ago.
Absolutely. And I mean,
he got too much to lose, and it's not money. It's like everything he's built.
Yeah. And so,
and the future of his possible families and stuff,
And that's why you're in this place where, again, he was not suspended. They basically gave him time to step away from the team and like get himself right. And so it said at least 2 games, but the way that this is, like, it seems like he's going to have to do some like heavy evaluation. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was longer than 2 games. And what that means for the Memphis Grizzlies is probably that team does not, is not the same level of power that it was, or that it seemed like they could be. But more importantly, like, this behooves everybody. Like, it's good for everybody if he takes this time away, right? You give him an opportunity to become a better person. If you're the Memphis Grizzlies, you get to keep your star player in the right minds where he's better able to, like, handle situations and hopefully stay alive, right? It seems like dramatic, but legitimately.
Oh, it's legitimate.
The name that keeps coming to mind is Young Dolph. You heard about the rapper
course.
Young Dolph? He got shot outside of a cookie store, man.
Trying to buy some cookies in Memphis. And speaking of rappers, Tolo from the 630 also says the best. Look at Takeoff of the Migos down in Houston as a cautionary, unfortunate tale. You don't have to be the aggressor for something terrible to happen.
Absolutely.
Which is, imagine, he's waving the gun at the club, and they say it was in Colorado. I'm talking about Ja Morant.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? What if his crew got into it with somebody else's crew that happened to be at the club, which is kind of what happened with Takeoff and Amigos, right? The crews got involved, and guess what? Somebody's collateral damage, and it happened to be superstar Takeoff. Well, guess what, Ja Morant? Somebody else could have got shot with your gun or somebody else's gun because they pulled a piece because you got a piece. That's how unfortunate it is when you just trying to act hard.
And so hopefully Ja Morant gets himself right. And I mean, it seems like so many people care about this, at least from just a personal human standpoint. And that's one thing I will say that kind of encouraged me throughout this whole thing. There's a lot of sadness around it just because of the decisions that were made. It seemed like a lot of people handled this a lot better than we've seen similar things handled in the past.
I mean, he's dodged a bullet in all seriousness because there's no issues involved. There's no police involved. There's nobody hurt involved. There's no lawsuits involved. He is fortunate. All he has to do is get his act together. Whether it's seeing a psychiatrist, whether it's been a wellness, or whether it's doing some soul searching, no matter what it is, he's got an opportunity to right or wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the Get Right with Reg CA on 105 through the Fan. Memphis native Chris Arnold sitting in with me on 105 through the Fan. I appreciate you, my man.
I was texting all weekend, man.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Texting and calling.
When we tell you CA know people, CA knows people. Here, abroad, CA knows folks.